Now, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
This is a YMH exclusive. YMH exclusive. YMH exclusive. YMH.
You're going to die.
Okay.
How do you say anything? Cucumber? Cucumbers.
So I go to South America, right?
Yes.
I go to South America. And man, it was a great trip. It really was a great trip. So as you know, I have to give you kind of the backstory to lay this out correctly first.
Okay.
So as many people know, I'm not telling you anything new here, but just to lay this out. I grew up in a household with one foreign parent and one American parent. And the reason I point that out, the reason I make that distinction is because it really does make a difference than when you grow up in a house with, let's say, two Spanish speaking or two foreign speaking parents. The one means that I'm actually very much engrossed and immersed in American culture. Most of my friends growing up in school are pretty much from American households. And I would meet kids like myself who had like one foreign parent. And I heard a lot of Spanish growing up. And then I made kind of a leap when I used to go to South America as a kid and spend my summers down there where my speaking just went much, much higher, right? And I became much more fluent. And then I would say that the most fluent that I became was when I went and studied abroad in Madrid, because by that time, like I said, I'd spent a lot of time in my summers in South America. And when I went to the University of Madrid, I didn't go to like a class for American kids. I went to full like class with Spaniards.
Oh my God.
Right?
Did you do okay?
Yeah.
Did you
and
follow?
I did comparative economics,
Jesus.
Spanish art. I did like real classes, term papers.
Oh my God.
I lived with a lady who, like the host lady was like this 70-year-old lady who spoke zero English. So it's full immersion, you know? So when I came back from that was 6-7 months. I would say it's probably the best Spanish I spoke, and I was 21 years old. One thing I took for granted, and people even who are born in other countries, so it's their native language and move, is that their primary language will deteriorate. You know what I mean? Like I know a guy who was born in Hong Kong and he moved to the States 40 years ago. His like Cantonese deteriorated because he didn't use it, you know?
Sure.
So one thing I took for granted was that I always just, if someone says Spanish, I'm like, yeah, I speak Spanish. And a few years ago, I just realized how much it had deteriorated, right? So that's why I started doing the Spanish podcast. And I really enjoyed the fact that one thing, if you want to like see how this actually can work, watch just for like 30 seconds, Tom Segura in Espanol, episode 1, and then the last one that I just did with my mom. And you'll see a guy, same guy, probably 2 years apart, speaking wildly different levels of Spanish. Because when I started it, it's when I realized, I was like, holy shit, it has completely deteriorated. And then it made me kind of upset. That's why I started doing sets in Spanish. So I pushed myself to do that. I started hanging out with Spanish speaking people more. I started like interacting with my cousins more. I just like started watching movies and TV shows. I was bothered that it had deteriorated so much. And it has improved immensely in 2 years. It's not perfect by any means, but it's improved quite a bit in the last couple of years. So then we booked this tour. We're like, all right, go do these shows. I go do these shows down in South America. And like I said, I've become much more comfortable with my level of Spanish in the last, let's say, year. I go down there and like, I just take my tour manager. I book local openers, and we have a driver, we have security, and my tour manager is English only speaking guy. So he's like, oh, we have a bilingual like drivers and all this stuff. We don't have bilingual. They don't. Everybody was like, hello, how are you doing? Like, so I became our translator.
Oh my goodness.
And we get there and it's like, we're in Argentina and it's awesome. I fucking loved it down there. I absolutely loved it. I hadn't been there in 20 years. I had such a good time. So, from the moment I land, it's like the guy at the airport, the driver to the hotel, checking into the hotel, going to lunch, talking. All the conversations are in Spanish, right? Like, it means I'm speaking English basically like an hour a day to my tour manager, and that's kind of it. So it's like day 1, day 2, day 3, Spanish, Spanish, Spanish. 4th day, I have a dream in Spanish.
Whoa.
And then the transition happens where, you know how part of routine is you'll have you talk to yourself about conversations you're gonna have. Like you might be getting ready in the morning and go, when I get into work today, I need to tell Nadav that we have to cover this and this topic, and I don't want to forget, so I got to remember to tell him that. Like those types of things. Like the 5th day, I start doing that in Spanish.
Oh my God.
So I start telling myself, you need to do blah, 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 and blah today, and you need to tell the guy this, but I'm having that conversation to myself in Spanish. I catch myself having the conversation in Spanish to myself. So now it's like, you know, then we go to Chile. I'm there like day 5. Then I go to Peru. Dude, so it's like day 7 or 8, and I'm at the airport, and I'm being taken through the airport by an official, you know, from the airline. This guy's walking me through the airport, and he's right before I go through security. He goes, and he's very professional, but he goes, "Oh, can I ask you a favor?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." And he goes, "Would you sign an autograph for my wife? My wife's American, and I told her I was escorting you today, and she's a big fan." And I go, "Yeah, sure, man." So he has a backpack, and he takes out this like photo of me, like a promotional photo. And he goes, "She couldn't come to your show because she had to watch our daughter. And so she was really sad, but she would really love that." And I go, "No problem." So he gives me a marker. I start writing to his wife, the autograph. I forget her name, right? But I'm like, "Dear blah, blah, blah." And I'm trying to write, "You should have abandoned your daughter and come to the show." And as I get to daughter, I forget how to spell daughter. I go D-A, and then I'm like, "You," and I go, "How do you spell daughter?" And he's like, "What?" Because he's foreign.
Yeah.
And I was like, "It's D-A-U-G," and then I'm like, "Oh my God." I'm sitting here and I'm like,
How do you say anything? Cucumber? Cucumbers.
I had a Hilaria Baldwin moment, and I've been mocking her relentlessly, including on the trip. When I'm on the trip, and I did press in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, I spent 15 minutes catching them up on the Hilaria. They were like, "What?" And I'm like, "This fucking dumb broad." And I do the whole thing. I couldn't remember how to spell daughter for a second.
And did you go, "How do you say?"
Yeah, I was like, "How do you say daughter?" And then I realized that like she actually, as much as I mocked her, she actually kind of had a point. That if your brain is fully in one, like, you know, like
Immersed,
you're so concentrated in something that now my accent didn't go. I wasn't like daughter, like hija, how do you say? I wasn't like that. I was just like, oh, the spelling. It fucked me up, the A-U-G-H-T. I was like,
of
wait
course.
a second. It fucked me up. And I had so much empathy for Hilaria. I wanted to actually, you know, reach out to her and tell her.
Oh, okay. Are you going to reach out and...
Querida Hilaria, le pido mil disculpas por, no sé, por todos los días que me burlé de ti y por, bueno, ya sabes que te quiero mucho y... No sé si sería posible, pero si me perdonas, me siento muy, muy mal. Pero a veces cuando hablas solo un idioma por un rato, a veces te olvidas de tu propio idioma. Así que, bueno, te pido disculpas y espero que un día podamos hablar quizás en inglés. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
That was fun watching you talk Mexican.
Yeah.
What did you do? You just ordered some talks or something?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I know I understand your sympathy for Hilaria. The only thing I wish you would have done, though, is do the thing where you were like, "How do you say?" Like, make move accent, you know,
Yeah.
Oh, it's so embarrassing.
This is, how do you say?
So, There's been some questions about where I'm born. I'm born in Boston. And then I spent some of my childhood in Boston, some of my childhood in Spain. My family, my brother, my parents, my nephew, everybody is over there in Spain. Now I'm here. And so there was like a lot of back and forth my entire life. And I'm really lucky that I grew up speaking 2 languages.
Just like Tom.
Yeah, just like Tommy.
You guys are so like one
so
now.
that was one thing. I think people ask sometimes about how I speak. I am that person that if I've been speaking a lot of Spanish, I tend to mix them. And if I'm speaking more English, or doing a lot of English, then I mix that.
LOL, same.
Lols. You guys are twins now.
Lolsies.
This is crazy.
Yes.
This is crazy.
I am the same.
You're that bitch now.
Yep.
Are you going to start doing that at home where you're like, Christina, how do you say microwave? I don't know how to spell.
We have very few ingredients. We have tomatoes. We have, how do you say it? Cucumbers. We have red.
But that's
how do you say she said, how do you say in English?
Yeah, she still took it too far. How do you say in English?
Like, how do you say, ¿cómo se dice en español? Pepino.
Yeah. She took it a little too far.
How do you say hija, daughter?
That's what it would have been.
I should have said
¿Cómo
that
se
to him.
dice?
¿Cómo se dice hija en
Inglés? Hija.
Thank you for watching that highlight here from YMH Studios. That was a highlight or a clip, whichever word you prefer. You watched it, and there are so many more little bite-sized episode things. They're just click them. Maybe it's someone screaming or bleeding. Maybe it's just laughing at someone, making fun of them.